All right, everyone. One of the top contenders for Biden's potential running mate pick is a communist sympathizer and a lover of cults, specifically Scientology. Now, I realize when you're in her particular congressional district, you have to sort of cozy up to the local cults, because California is the land of fruits and nuts, so you have all sorts of weird shit go on there. So you get Scientology, and you get all these other, like, goofy movements that believe in volcano gods and midichlorians and stuff like that. I'm sure there are plenty of Star Trek cultists there that actually follow, like, I don't know, Klingon religion or something, and probably are not entirely ironic about it. But this is hilarious, because one part of this is it's A/B testing. This person is one that wasn't really discussed before, Karen Bass. Wasn't discussed so much. They put the name out there more publicly in order to A/B test to see the public's response. I'm going to hazard a guess that unless Biden has totally flipped his lid, I realize he's got cognitive decline, but he appears to be somewhat sane. Unless he has declined further than I speculate, Karen Bass will not be the person that he puts in that position. Now, he could pleasantly surprise me and be truly insane enough to do that, but trust me, there's definitely a fairly large movement among left-wing individuals, especially of yesteryear, the millennial left, that really have a problem with Scientology. And the idea that Biden is going to be more competitive in Florida by having a running mate who was literally a part of a group that was like operating in Cuba, apparently, and was tied to literal communism, at least in name, socialism in practice, of course, for most intents and purposes. I don't know what I don't think it would be wise. It's just like Kamala Harris, and actually, like in this article, they're like, oh, basically Biden's looking for an excuse not to have Kamala Harris as the running mate. I think that's a good idea. I don't think this would be a particularly good alternative, though. I think at this point, Susan Rice, ironically enough, with all of her problems, is probably the least tainted of the people he's looking at. That says something about the quality of the Dem field for running mate possibilities. You know, Trump, he's got Pence. Pence just sits quietly and does nothing most of the time. Basically, he's basically like a quiet version of George W. Bush. Looks a little bit similar, sounds a little bit similar. Does the Jesus thing, and I think in his case is more realistic about it. Actually believes what he says. Maybe for the better, maybe not. Who knows? Pence, I never really liked as a VP. In fact, you'll remember back in the 2016 election when Pence was named as the running mate. I think I wanted Flynn, if I remember correctly, and that aged well because, of course, he's been dragged through the ringer and he's still fine. Briefly, I refused to support Trump and said that the lesser of all evils with Pence on the ticket, arguably at that time, because he's a neocon, is kind of religious guy, and I'm not really into that, was Johnson. But then Johnson broke down and went nuts. And by the way, I jumped back off the Johnson tugboat before his Aleppo comment, so keep that in mind. I think that aged well as well. I don't see anyone who's really... I think Klobuchar would have been a better, more safe choice, but he's made it clear that his running mate, if she's, dropped her possibility and gotten behind Biden's idea, which is it needs to be a woman specifically of color. And the reason why they're doing this is they know that if they put a woman of color, like a Susan Rice or something, up against Trump, they will lose. Because there are a lot of Democrats that have racial beliefs. There are a lot of Democrats, male feminists, with very sexist beliefs. When they get into the privacy of the ballot box, that manifests itself. Hillary Clinton, here's what the DNC figured. The Dems want the first female president, and they want it badly. What better opportunity than to get a dude with cognitive decline who will have to resign or possibly die of an aneurysm, who's clearly on his last leg, into office with a VP who's a female, specifically of color, so that they can get both of those achievements at once, if you can call them that. I don't like identity politics. The Democrats heavily disagree. If Hillary couldn't do it, then none of these other losers can. Hillary Clinton was, despite her corruption, much more recognizable, had a much longer track record in office, not usually elected office, but she had been Secretary of State and so forth. She was recognizable, a fundraising, a Valkyrie of fucking siphoning money from foreign states using slush funds to pump them into the DNC. She was a big money, well-known, stable candidate. And Hillary did win the popular vote. Keep this in mind. But do you honestly think that if she can't do it, do you think any of these other people can? The DNC knows this. They want the first female president. They're willing to fall on their own sword, causing massive social alienation and fucking up arguably the first female presidency that we would definitely have if Biden gets elected. Fuck that up by making it an appointed rather than elected slot. The Democrats are willing to do that, and so you've got Biden. He's like, okay, we got Kamala, the overzealous former prosecutor who openly lied about smoking weed and listening to Tupac before jailing thousands of largely innocent young black men. Okay, that'll go over well. So, Kamala, nobody likes her. Most Democrats don't like her. It'd be the most unlikable hard-on-crime ticket that the Democrats have ever run. Be the most unlikable ticket in U.S. political history, at least for the last maybe 100 years or so. I guess if Richard Nixon comes back, he'd have more popularity than Kamala Harris. So that's number one. Then you got this crazy woman. She's flirting around with the Castro regime and praising Scientology with the literal hymn of Xenu, by the way, in the background on that video, as you can see in the description, and is just like doing weird shit. So I don't think that'll go over well. Again, there's a bloc within the left that has a problem with the religious spooky woo shit. That could come back to haunt him. You have Susan Rice. Well, Susan Rice covering for Obama's scandals over and over. That's sure not going to drive far-right turnout higher. That's sure. Yeah, another Obama official. Wow, another dynastic inside politician. That'll make Biden's campaign more exciting, by the way, for the youth voters. Really get those Bernie fans going. He doesn't really have any good options. At this point, he would arguably be best served by trying to con Michelle Obama into taking the slot. Oh, please, Michelle, come out of retirement. Your husband was president. Now you can be president. Sure, I mean, you'll be appointed to it when I fucking croak of a stroke or something, but, you'll still be there. Get Obama. He'll be the first man. The first man. I think, honestly, despite the total lack of qualifications, he'd be more likely to prevail with her on the ticket. He would literally be more likely to prevail with Oprah on the ticket than Karen Bass. I think that'd be a disaster. So I hope he chooses her. I mean, it'd be very funny. The Scientology jokes, thinking about the idea of someone involved with cult activity and an opaque, a transparent cult that was written by a sci-fi writer and which, harasses former members if they ever leave and tries to get huge sums of money from celebrities and they dress up in weird clothes and worship a dude in a volcano named Xenu. If you have a running mate who does these things and pals around with literal communists, it's going to sort of lay bare the kookiness of today's Democratic Party now, isn't it? So please, Biden, please choose Karen Bass and torpedo your own campaign. It'll be the funniest shit ever. That's about all. Peace out.